Hello, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the air. And now we are on the train between Hanover and Amsterdam. And as you can see, we just left Osnabrück. Yesterday I talked about recording dreams, and today I'd like to be a little more general and talk more about dream memory as a broader concept. Yesterday I touched on the fact that our concept of memory in general is a bit flawed because we equate it with computer memory, like just drawing data off of a...
Guten Tag, meine Damen und Herren, wir begrüßen unsere zugestiegenen Fahrgäste und wünschen Ihnen zur Fahrt nach Amsterdam eine angenehme Reise.
Oh, good. All right. So we equate it with just taking data off of computer memory, and what comes off is the same thing that went on. It's just... And brain scientists and people who study the mind have come to the conclusion that that's not true, that we have to take the little pieces of memory, the different stimuli that have impressed themselves upon our mind, and we have to reconstruct it into a story, into a new narrative each time. And now, what compounds this difficulty with the memory in dreams is because dreams take place in a realm that's not subject to the same time and space laws or the same time and space context as the physical world. Often you'll hear people make the remark, oh, well, in dreams, time and space don't exist. And I have found over the years that this is not an accurate representation of things. The dreams happen in, for lack of a better terminology, the astral plane, or the a non-physical plane connecting to our physical plane. And time and space are just different. They're different there than they are here. One aspect being that you can more easily see a few days, a few weeks into the future or past from there, and depending on how high a state of consciousness, how deep a state of consciousness. It's funny how high and deep are the same thing in this context, but anyway, depending on how high or deep your state of consciousness is, you can end up getting prophetic and actually seeing things that are going to happen in years to come. So here you are, waking up in the morning, trying to remember something that happens in different context of space and time. And it's really hard to remember these things because you're remembering things such as two places that existed in the same place at one time, which in the dream context makes sense. Naturally, in our world, does not make sense. It violates our laws. Two things cannot exist in the same place at the same time. In the dreams, they can. And so you're faced with reconstructing it in a way that makes sense in the physical world. You've got to, if you've got something that happens in the same place, sometimes you've got to actually divide that into two stories. So in your dream journal, that'll end up being two stories when actually it was all one experience in a certain sense when you were dreaming it. We're unaccustomed to remembering things that don't make sense to us, or it's hard to remember things that don't make sense to us. It's very much the same, or it's very similar to recognizing familiar objects, or actually even seeing things. Let's say, for instance, you have never seen a corkscrew. If I put a table full of objects in front of you and then asked you what you saw, first of all, you wouldn't remember the corkscrew because you wouldn't know it was a corkscrew and you wouldn't know the word corkscrew to describe it. But it even goes beyond that, actually. If you've never seen a corkscrew before, nobody's never ever shown you one, and you haven't seen some examples of it, if you look at that table, you won't even see the corkscrew. It's an interesting psychological fact. So it's the same thing with dream memory, is that these things are so odd and so unlike our daily dreaming life that it's hard for us to even learn how to remember them. It takes practice. And the other side of it is the relationship between these inner experiences and the activity of the physical body. And I've already intimated earlier in some of my videos that the subconscious is what we contact when we still the mind and when we still the physical body, such as in meditation, sacred dance, artistic absorption. There are other ways in which the body is quieted, the mind is quieted, and ultimately sleep is the ultimate state, because the body just simply switches off except for the vital functions, and the mind, the awareness in the body can detach from one another. It goes the same way the other way around, and that is when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing you wake up in the morning, as long as you don't move, as long as you don't stir and change your physical state, the state of your physical body, memory of what happened during sleep is still much more intact, is still much closer to you. So it's a trick that you have to do when you wake up in the morning, is to keep your body still. So first of all, you have to cultivate the habit of every single time you wake up, and this is something that's just absolutely habit for me after 37 years, is the first thought I have every morning is I'm conditioning myself to think, what was I dreaming just now? And that needs to become a habit. And the next thing is that you wake up, you think, what was I dreaming just now? And you do not move. If you don't remember anything, then you get into another one of your habitual sleep positions. Somehow there's an association that sometimes you get into this sleep position and you suddenly remember something. Now, I'm not being totally honest here. Well, should I say that I've had to adapt this? My sleeping habit is that despite the fact that all the productivity gurus out there say, never hit the snooze alarm, get up right away, no. I've modified that to never hit the snooze alarm more than once. So that's what I do, is I wake up in the morning, and I figure that 5 minutes into my schedule, and when I wake up, when the alarm wakes me up, I hit the snooze, and I try to get as the least stimulated, the least excited. I just simply, okay, snooze off, on rather, and then I get back into the position I was sleeping in, and I give myself 5 minutes to remember my dreams. And because basically, if you don't remember it within those first 5 minutes, you're screwed anyway. You're not going to remember it unless you have some kind of spontaneous dream memory an hour later, which is something different. So that's it. except for just maybe a quick mention. Yesterday I also talked about the different ways of keeping records, and I mentioned that I used to have a little keyboard that was like not connected to the internet or Windows or anything. It was very independent, and I was keeping digital records of dreams. And I'll tell you, the biggest advantage of that is that it's searchable. I was in an online dream work group with one member was a anthropology professor from New England, and I was always amazed at the kind of things that he could come up with, the kind of research that he could do with his dreams, because he had it all in databases, and he could look things up by keywords and dates and things like that. I don't necessarily want to go to that extent, but I really would like to have, I would like everything to be searchable. And at this point, I'm going to have to do the laborious task of going through all of my dream journals and writing an index that I can stick in the front, so that I can basically still remember the titles of the dreams and maybe the basic theme of it, and I can leaf through them now. Sometimes when I want to find a dream, it takes me an hour or more of just searching through my dream notebooks. All right, that's it for today. Dream memory. I might have more to say about dream memory in the future, but that covers a lot of my theory and practice on this. Next stop, Amsterdam.